wanna take you for a ride.
Welcome to Kick Scammers, the show where we look at the scammiest Kickstarters, the scummiest Indiegogos, and the most disgraceful GoFundMes to ever find their way onto the internet. Sometimes these scams are intentional, and sometimes it's a lot more complicated than that. Regardless, the end result is always the same. You get absolutely shafted. And today, boy oh boy, is that true. The Xano drone was one of Kickstarter's earliest major failures. Of course, plenty has come and gone since then, but the Xano, that little drone that managed to pull in over £2 million, not only ended up being the most successful campaign in Europe for the longest time, but also it was such a tremendous flop that Kickstarter themselves had to send in private investigators to find out if it was a scam. Was it? I'm not telling you that straight away. I'm going to lay down the facts and let you guys decide in Kickstarter's drone scam. Welcome to Slope's Game Room. Our story starts back in 2014 at the height of Kickstarter's popularity when the Talking Group unveiled the Xano Autonomous Intelligent Swarming Nano Drone Kickstarter campaign, and in short, it was a huge success. The original idea actually came in 18 months beforehand when the team were tasked to make a surveillance drone for a local defense contractor. Bringing us back up to speed, that surveillance drone had now become a palm-sized aerial photography drone with a campaign video showing off the ultra-delicate looking device recording bikers and people jumping off of cliffs. Apparently, a lot of these sort of people exist out there as it smashed it. $125,000 was the goal and 12,075 backers got it to $2,335,119 with a final figure of $2,094,833 after fees, becoming Europe's best-selling Kickstarter to date. And why did so many people have so much faith in a project that was eventually going to become a huge failure? Well, the campaign was that good. Not only did the product look good and have a great video, but it also had some pretty big names found directly on the campaign page, like BBC, Fox News, TechCrunch. The list was endless. And with quotes such as, "Our supply chain is 100% ready to go, from vital components that make Xano fly to the very boxes that Xano is packaged in are all priced and sourced." How could you not get suckered in? On top of this, the campaign also had some rather impressive stretch goals because it was such a success. We're talking high definition video recording, wireless charging, built-in storage, the ability to fly upside down for some reason, and even thermal imagery too. Calm down, Jasmine, calm down. Even without all of these extras, for the time, this bad boy was significantly better than any other drone on the market within the price range. It was an absolute steal. Anyway, that campaign ended and the updates were constant. Pretty much nothing but good news. Heck, they even opened up another website to take pre-orders in too, which gained well over 3,000 additional sales, resulting in a further £561,794 and an extra £48,281 in accessories. Unfortunately, with a project this size and with so many backers, delays were obviously going to happen. Most people didn't mind this, but you're always going to have someone that moans and demands updates, the people that don't even understand what Kickstarter is all about. Now, the team did actually give some updates, which was good, although they were quite vague, and they did eventually start to ship out the products. Unfortunately, to the website pre-order people only. You know, the people that came in second. But that wasn't the only issue. The drones themselves barely worked. bunny hopping around, never staying up for more than a few seconds or a couple of minutes before crashing into the ground, all whilst recording incredibly low quality footage. The gesture control, that was a huge selling point, literally did not work at all, and no way was this drone going to be flying up on its own without you controlling it like it was originally designed to do. It was actually quite hard for me to find footage of people playing with these drones. It was practically non-existent, and yet there was about 600 of them out there in the wild. Again, it only went to the pre-order people on the website rather than Kickstarter backers themselves. And the reason for this, well, was because there was a very short window on when you could actually play with these drones. You see, things were not good. Not just with the drones themselves, but also at the company. Remember that surveillance drone I told you about, which pretty much kickstarted this Kickstarter? Well, apparently that didn't work all that well either. The drone would constantly lose connection and it would simply fail whenever it bounced between Wi-Fi signals, resulting in it bouncing off of any surface it was close to. Thankfully, the company was going to be able to fix this. They were this close to fixing it, in fact, just this close, and they kept that contractor on the edge of his seat for 3 years, claiming that they were, again, this close to getting it perfect. Obviously, they never perfected it, and the end result was the Xano drone. Yet another drone that simply just didn't do what it was set out to do. The money raised was spent on supercomputers to get the drones working, super expensive drones that they themselves would then work backwards from in order to sell them cheaper, CES stands, and a cool £50,000 for each director for a job well done. At the CES show, the team was very dismissive of any competitive drones, and from a consumer's point of view, they were with them. The amount that they were planning to put into this thing for the price was simply unbelievable. Funny that. Crazier still, the drones didn't even fly at the CES show. They literally just showed the drone, said what it could do, mugged off the competition, and walked away as one of the best robots or drones at the entire show, according to Engadget. Excuses ranged from the Wi-Fi in the room not being strong enough, his laptop being stolen, and best of all, it was simply too impressive. It was military specific, and because of that, right now, in this state, it could get confiscated by the US authorities if they flew it. The team continued to spend that Kickstarter money on extremely expensive 3D printers, high-end Apple Macs. They both got new cars to lease, a BMW M4 and a BMW M6 to be specific, and they hired an absurd amount of staff to get the job done. Just to be clear, they did all of this for a drone that, according to Kickstarter, looked like it was ready to go, with only 6 months to wait until the things would actually get shipped out. Of course, they were pretty far from that end goal. The team would work endless hours to get the job done, and they were happy to do so. Some of which didn't even get overtime for their work. They just believed in the dream of finishing a product and getting it shipped to 12,000 people. In the long run, the benefits were definitely going to be outweighing those long hours. Of course, it wasn't just technical people they had to hire, they also had to hire human resource people as well because of the campaign's overwhelming success. You see, the original plan was for the team themselves to test the product and answer the customers on the Kickstarter themselves. If the campaign doubled to, say, 1,600 customers, then of course, that wouldn't be an issue. But it didn't. It went well past that figure, resulting in hiring specific teams to look after these areas specifically. And with the success of the campaign came all of those extras too. When the team tried to add the SD card slot, it resulted in the drone being too heavy, resulting in new motors, but they also made it heavier, resulting in even bigger propellers. You get the idea. Of course, the backers were none the wiser to any of this because the updates were coming in thick and fast, and for the most part, they were positive. However, a few of the backers did start to see cracks in those updates when there were some obvious fibs being told. Like on February 2nd, when they showcased the PCBs that had arrived in the offices that day, which they obviously forgot about when they posted them arriving several weeks later in another update, and they arrived again a couple of months after that. Something fishy was definitely going on. Heck, they were already well past the ship date by this point, and now they were recycling updates? In order to speed up production and get these products out ASAP, they decided to skip the final test run and just go straight into production. In other words, they missed the final test build. Let me explain. So, the prototypes were completed, in their eyes at least, which means it's time to go fully into production, right? Not exactly. You see, the advised move when manufacturing something at this scale is to actually move into yet another test run. Jumping from, say, 10 working units to several thousand is a mammoth jump, not just for the company, but also the manufacturers in China. Of course, it's going to be cheaper doing it this way in the long run if everything goes to plan, but the absolute ideal solution would be for now to move from 10 working units to 100. Make sure they work. If they do, ship them out and then go from 100 to 1,000, etc, etc. Of course, they didn't do this. They skipped this step, which was obviously a stupid thing to do. The plastic pieces came back way too heavy compared to the prototypes, getting it from 55G to 70G. And this, of course, resulted in a drone that could fly for minutes at best rather than quarter of an hour that was originally advertised. They tried bigger batteries, but that didn't work because they were obviously heavier. They tried to return the propellers, but of course, that didn't work either as the Chinese manufacturer refused to accept them because, well, the propellers were not defective. The design was defective. They had no choice but to take the hit and order bigger propellers. But when they did, these new bigger propellers barely missed each other on top of the drone and with the slightest vibration started to warp. They tried to shave off plastics from the original main body, but that didn't work either. Every single thing that they tried brought them to a new dead end, and they were losing more and more money every single time they tried something new. Eventually, they did get it working to an okay degree, according to them at least, and the plan was to release the drones to website backers before Kickstarter backers in order to please PayPal. PayPal. You see, this company wasn't just bleeding money, they were desperate for more money. And PayPal wasn't helping. PayPal had blocked the majority of the money that they had raised from those website sales as they require businesses to deliver working products within a short 20-day-ish window time frame. And the only way to get the money back was to prove to PayPal that they could still ship these units. The longer they took, of course, the smaller that figure became, because pre-order customers were constantly asking for refunds by this point, a figure that they could sign in, they could see going down, 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 but they couldn't ever get it in full at least. Anyway, as I said, they did eventually start to get these drones working to an okay degree. They started to ship them out to obviously please the PayPal gods. And once those drones went out, the complaints came in. Something the team was not ready for. They couldn't understand why the drones didn't work and said that they would post an update that would tackle these problems, as they apparently only just realized upon testing that 1 in 3 drones had issues. How the hell didn't they work this out beforehand? Unless, of course, they just wanted to ship them out to please those PayPal gods, right? The problem was, it just simply wasn't tested enough, and it just wasn't finished. They were able to get some of that money from pre-order peeps, but the majority that came in instantly went straight back out the door again, paying for refunds as Kickstarter backers who were already wound up that they were put in second place had started to see what these drones were, or to be more specific, were not capable of. The official forums for this product that was once a great place for the backers to mingle between each other and give advice and talk about their upcoming drones had become a breeding ground for really angry backers, and one by one, every positive backer turned into a negative backer. This heavily affected the health of one of the directors that was losing sleep, having severe chest pains, and according to the doctor, it was all stress, obviously. Eventually, he had no choice but to leave the company with absolutely no shares, tools, money, or anything to his name for his health, according to him at least, and shortly after, the remaining less technical directors also had no choice but to shut up shop too, declaring bankruptcy, which resulted in letting all personnel go and selling off all stock, including that supercomputer which every single Xano drone had to be connected to in order to work. And what do you think happened when they shut that computer off? Every single working drone simply fell from the sky at the exact same time, leaving nothing but a cool looking drone that simply just cannot fly, but instead all it can do is just sit there blinking red, trying to connect to something that now doesn't exist. So in the end, were the Xano drones a scam? I mean, not originally anyway. The intention was there from the get-go, and of course, the holding back of PayPal funds is something that has plagued several crowdfunding projects that we have discussed in the past. However, perhaps it was for the greater good. The team behind Xano had not one, but two attempts at creating an incredible piece of drone technology, and in both examples, they failed to reach the goal that they set out for themselves. Unfortunately, when they crossed the line of telling lies to people at conventions and hiding information and repeating information to backers in exchange for real information, it's hard not to see this thing move into the realm of a scam project. In fact, on a personal level, me and my friend used to use Kickstarter quite a lot, constantly messaging each other on what we backed, and he was one of those Xano drone backers, and because it was such a massive flop, he was completely put off the platform and, from what I understand, never used Kickstarter again. And I'm sure he wasn't the only one. It's a pretty cut and dry story if you ask me. Someone had a grand plan and convinced the world twice that he could deliver. He could deliver something that the big players simply couldn't, and when you put it like that, perhaps we, the backers, are slightly to blame. Kick off, yeah, I mean definitely kick off. Before the days of Kickstarter, do you not think investors that were fooled into investing didn't kick off when projects went tits up? Of course they did. Nowadays, it is a slightly different story. It's easier for hundreds if not thousands of people to support these projects, and they do so with less money, and because of this, they have no choice but to simply take the campaign owner's word as gospel. If you are new to these videos, understand that these websites are not pre-order websites. They are crowdfunding websites full of great ideas and, of course, terrible ideas too, like the Xano, which might be coming back. Remember when I said the Xano were very critical of other drone companies at CES? Yeah? Well, the main company that they were slagging off was Extreme Flyers, who not only tried their best to introduce themselves at the show before getting completely shot down by Xano, but they were also the company that constantly got belittled by Team Xano for having a drone that only did half of what Xano offered. This was what resulted in Xano winning the Engadget Best of the Show award. This was what resulted in potential customers sticking their noses up at Extreme Flyers because theirs was only 720p instead of 1080p, because it didn't have the technology that would avoid obstacles built in, and it was more expensive than Xano. Extreme Flyers definitely took a hit from this, even though they were the ones that had a working prototype at the convention, and the Xano team didn't. They literally held a drone and told people what it could do one day. Also, it's worth noting that Extreme Flyers also had a crowdfunding campaign that, from what I can tell, was a success. It's far from a high-end product, sure, but it never lied about what it was going to be, to the detriment of other companies that did lie. Anyway, Extreme Flyers only went and purchased the majority of dead stock from Xano and are actually trying to fix it. Of course, it was still not as amazing as the original pitch, but hey, they actually did it and showed it off at the 2018 CES show. Who knows what will ever come of this? Perhaps those backers still might get something for their investments, or perhaps this is all just a massive middle finger to the company that so openly slagged off the competition. Regardless, it's a bittersweet end for the Xano story.